the world of energy is going through tremendous change in terms of multiple fuel sources and multiple innovations around how energy gets delivered. And China, of course, will be critical in that change, both from a standpoint of fuel diversity, environmental protection, cost of electricity, and things like that. I think you're going to be incredibly powerful. So when I talk about things like distributed power, picture the continent of Africa, just for a second. So the continent of Africa has 100 gigawatt deficit of electricity. 100 gigawatt deficit of electricity. If you fly over Africa at night, you basically don't see very many lights on. Yet it's surrounded by gas. It's surrounded by natural resources. It's surrounded by the capability to create electricity for all the people in Africa exists around it. And the only way that's going to be solved is by distributed power. Is by getting a match between where the gas is, where the power can be generated. And so being able to do power off the grid is incredibly important in continents like that. In China, it's going to be a combination. It's going to be a combination of power on the grid, power off the grid, allowing industrials to invest in distributed power. And I think as the reforms take place, there's going to be more opportunities for, let's say, more entrepreneurial power setting. So private investors can come in, they can build power plants, they can tie onto the grid or do it in the industrial setting. And I think that's critical as well. So I think distributed power is a big growth opportunity around the world and also in China. In terms of solar, again, I think every technology has a fit in terms of where the future is going to grow. I mean, China has done an amazing job of driving renewable energy, nuclear power, things like that. Today in solar, we're very small. I'm not at all happy with where our position is in solar today. I'd like us to see us big. I mean, we're big in wind, we're big in gas, we're big in lots of other technologies, but I think solar in a distributed setting is going to be incredibly important for GE going forward. The first industrial building in China was huge power plants, primarily fueled by coal. And the country was growing so quickly that was the only way that industrial development could take place, let's say, between 1980 and 2014. Clearly, that's not sustainable. Clearly, the next 20 years have to be more distributed, more renewables, more wind power, more solar power, more gas power, things like that. More off the grid than on the grid. So the entire nature of the energy reforms have to take place for China to continue to grow. And that will take a very different type of development. The other one I would say in healthcare, and I've known our healthcare business in China for almost 20 years now. Healthcare innovation in China, let's say over the last 20 years, took place with big innovation, mainly in Beijing and Shanghai, at the big hospitals. And then it would trickle into the regional areas. It would trickle into the West, the smaller cities. That can't work anymore. There has to be specific innovations for the rural setting, for the average patient. There has to be new products like the ultrasound with the PDA. That has to be innovated strictly for not for a big hospital down the road here in Beijing, but for the rural hospital. And that's where the next innovation, I think, has to take place. And those are just two examples of where I think China can innovate and can disrupt. We talk about in GE talk about reverse innovation inside the company. And by reverse innovation, I always mean that there's going to be innovations that take place in a market like China that actually go back to the US, Europe, and create whole new business models. They're going to be built from China. And I expect that to take place as well. is that companies need to change. And if you have a static view of yourself, if you say this is the only place where I could be, but I can't be someplace else, you don't last as time goes on. So the world is going through incredible change right now, and companies like Google or Alibaba, they have massive impact in the world. Now, I think the way I would talk about GE is twofold. One is we do really hard things at scale. So if you get on an airplane and you look out the window at the jet engine that's going to fly you safely or your family safely, you want somebody that's like a real pro to have done that. That's me. When you get on that plane, I want you to feel like you're back in your mother's arms again, like a baby. And I'm going to fly you safely. And there's maybe 3 companies in the world that can do that. So the ability to innovate at scale on one side gives us a position that is very difficult for other people to compete with. Now on the other side, you have to be willing to invest in change, to win in your industries no matter where they go. And so if to be good in healthcare, we have to be good in software and analytics. We can't just sit there and say, well, geez, that's what Oracle does, or that's what a small startup does. We have to invest and win in those businesses as well. And GE has been, over our history, pretty able to shift and learn how to do new things. And the new investment we're making today is in analytics around our products. We have $1.2 billion of revenue this year in analytic revenue around our products. We've hired people from outside the company. We run the business in California. We run it as a separate entity inside the company. And so we're willing and able to go in that pathway as well. So I think companies have to be good at what they're good at. In our case, large-scale innovation, systems integration, jet engines, MR screens, things like that. But we also have to leap to new things. And that's what we're doing in analytics. So I think that's the only way you survive over a long period of time, is the ability to do both of those things. So localization, I think, is kind of the dominant theme of where the world is today, because, just every country's different. We don't generalize. We have a different strategy in China than we do in India. When I was kind of growing up in GE, there was US, Europe, Japan, and what was called rest of world. So when I was your age, early in my career, you were part of ROW, right? Which was this blob of everything else. That's not the way the world is today. The world is very focused on each individual country. Now, when I talk about simplification, I talk about how the company governs itself. Now, if you go back 5 or 10 years, almost every decision in China was made by somebody outside China, right? By layers of management. I pulled those out. So when I talk about simplification, it's like empowering the local team. It's delegating authority to people closest to the market. When I talk about simplification, I mean lean management. So really fewer layers, decision makers closer to the action, lean management. Everything on the clock, right? Everything measured by speed. So we measure cycle time on decisions, on how fast we introduce new products. That to me is simplification. I talk about customer intensity. The customer is the center to everything we do. And then I talk about digital tools, mobile tools, so that people can make decisions. But our China team today really has broad empowerment to do much of what needs to happen in China. So that's what I mean. But I think your point on localization is exactly where the world is today. there's a notion when I was in school, when I was your age, we were trained at that time to be what was called a general manager. A general manager. Today, there's nothing general. There's nothing general. Today, if you want to lead, you have to be able to pick products. You have to be able to pick countries. You have to be able to have a good nose for which innovation is going to work, which one isn't. Think about Google. Think about Larry Page at Google, right? Arguably, in the last decade, arguably, the best first 15 years of any company in history, including GE, by the way. I mean, I say this, but, think about what they've done, but they've done it from the domain. They've done it from intense knowledge of search and analytics and software and technology and innovation. So in your world, again, what could it mean? It could mean that you go into one specific medical discipline, cardiology or orthopedics or things like that. So I just urge you, it's always fun when you're young to think about your career the way you thought about school. You can go to economics, and then you can go to strategy, and then you can go to math, and you can go someplace else. I think most good careers, once you finish school, you go deep. You learn an industry, you learn a function, you become self-confident. It's not because general is bad, but you build a self-confidence because you can become an expert in terms of the things you do. And the world today, I think, values expertise as almost as much as anything else. And so that's what I mean about deep first. Get something that you're so good at that you can build off that